If you do much programming on FreeDOS, you might find it handy to have a DOS extended character reference sheet. And that's what we're going to write today in today's programming example. Now, it's something that I do all the time whenever I do DOS programs, especially if I need something that's going to build like a anything using the line drawing characters or one of the math characters and things like that. And I will say you can actually do that using the FreeDOS edit command. So if I actually go back to a DOS command line and then just type edit, you can see that one of the menus on this screen is the utilities menu. So I'm going to do Alt-U. That'll bring up the utilities menu, and then down arrow and hit return. And that brings up my utility for the ASCII table. And it shows you all of the DOS extended characters from hex code 00 in the upper left, which is what's highlighted right now, all the way to the lower right where it's hex code FF. And if I use my arrow keys, I can actually highlight different characters in there. And you can see that if I go down, it's going to highlight some different characters. And you can see at the bottom of the screen, it's changing the decimal value, the hex value, and the octal value, as well as what the actual character is itself. And if I move off to the right, you can see that it's obviously still changing that again. Now, some interesting things to note in here is that the standard printable ASCII, the things that are typically the things you would print to the user, start up here at hex code 20. And they go all the way to hex code 7E. So this row here is hex code 7, 7 something. And then over here to the right, you can see this is 7.0, and then 7.1, 7.2, all the way to the end where you get hex code, oops, right there is hex code 7E. So basically what you're doing is you're adding the row display and then the column display. So the row is hex code 70, and then the column that I'm in right now is hex code F. So hex 70 plus hex code F is going to give me 7F. The next couple of rows, so all the way from 080 right there to hex code AF right there. These are all of the international text characters. Not all of them are specifically international text. These two right here are the quotes you'll see in some foreign languages. Of course, we have the inverted exclamation point. But the vulgar fractions, 1/4 and 1/2, those are not obviously international characters, but they fit well into that category. The next couple of rows, starting here at B0 down to DF, right here, these are the different box drawing characters and block characters. And then after that, starting at E0, going down to FE, right here, or FF, I take that back. FE are all of the math symbols, and of course this is a sort of a sticky space. So by row, basically, they're kind of divided into different things. And I like to have an ASCII character table that kind of shows those different characters in different colors. I'm going to go ahead and exit this, and let's go ahead and write a simple program that will display the ASCII extended characters in those different colors. Now, before I get started, I'm going to be using OpenWatcom. So I'm going to go into the OpenWatcom directory, which is under devel. And there's a file here called owsetEnv. And if I just type that, so type owsetEnv, you can see it's got a bunch of commands that it's going to set my environment. I'll go ahead and do that right now. owsetEnv. Now, it says environment path not set. That just means it's not editing my my startup file, but I'm going to go ahead and also use the fed editor, which you'll note right now. Back up one directory. You'll note I don't actually have the fed editor in my path, and so I'm going to also update my path. Then I can do that with a set path equals or a path command. So let's do the path command, and then that is under C apps fed, and then a semicolon, and then the previous path variable, which I can reference as %path %. And now when I type fed, you can see I'm getting the fed editor. I haven't changed the colors on this one. This is a fresh install. So let's go ahead and we'll start over again here. We'll do a fed on a new file called ASCII.C. So this is a new file. And we're going to need to do, like most C programs, we're going to need to start with an include on standard IO.h. And because we're going to be doing graphics display, actually not even specifically graphics, just colors, that's actually in the graph.h headers in this case. So we're going to do include on graph.h. And here's my int main program. So int main. And I'm going to need to iterate over columns and rows. And so I'll need to do that. So I'll do an int on column and row. I'm also going to need to print some characters. And I'm not going to be able to do that using standard IO functions. I'm going to use the outText function because that'll preserve my colors. And so I want to create a very small string that I can store some temporary string data. And we'll see how we use that here in a second, but we'll go ahead and create a small string variable called stir. I probably should have a better name for it, but we'll just call it that. And we'll just make it 4 characters long. Remember, that's going to be actually 3 characters to display, plus the 4th character will be the null at the end. And let's go ahead and print out a table. So we'll do a for, and then we're going to start the row at hex. Remember, it starts at 20, hex 20 for the printable characters, and then as long as row is less than or equal to the hex value of F0. And then we're going to increment the row at the end of every loop using row plus equals 0x10. Then we're going to, inside that, we're going to print out also all of the columns in that row. So we can go ahead and do a for column equals 0x00 as long as the column is less than or equal to 0x0f. I could just do an f there, but just so you can kind of make it easy to add visually as a programmer. And then the call is going to be incremented by 1 every time. Or we can actually do it. Hex value is 0x01, but in this case, I'll just add by 1. I can also do call plus plus there, by the way. If you remember that shorthand for plus plus. And then in here, I could do let's do a naive one here. We'll just do a one that has put char on it, just so we can see what's in here. So we're not going to be using graph.h yet, and so we can do a put char of that character. And so what is the character I'm looking at? So the character I'm looking at really is the character at position row plus call, because remember, that's what I'm trying to display. And then when I'm done, I want to print out a new line at the end of that row. So we'll do another put char on a new line. And then at the end of my program, when it's all done, I'll do a return 0. Just to kind of see what we're doing, this is kind of the basics of the program. So we'll do a file, save, and quit. And we'll run the compiler on that. WCL ASCII.C. And if I did everything right, I'm not seeing any errors or warnings in there, so I should just have a ASCII.exe. So I'll just run the ASCII.exe program, and you can see I'm now getting all of the ASCII printable characters, starting at hex code 0x20 all the way to the end 0xff. Now let's make this a little bit more visually interesting and a little bit easier. So I want to be able to see when I run this program, what is the hex value for each one of these characters? And right now there's no way to do that. I'd have to manually sort of visually count by row. That's starting at 20 all the way down, right? And so I have to go by column, and I'll get easy to get lost on that one. So let's go ahead and edit the ASCII.C program. And done a fold over there. So let's go ahead and just expand that. And I want to make this more visually interesting. So I'm going to space these out a little bit. So before I actually print out my table, I'm going to set some colors. So let's do we'll do an out text. First of all, we want to do an out text of some sort of a header row. And so I know that I'm going to have 2 characters on the left, and so I'm going to do a space, a leading space, and then a plus. And then before each one of my columns, I'm going to change this so that I have a space between each of my columns. And so I'm going to do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then it's not 10, it's A, B, C, D, E, and F. And before that, I actually want to set some colors. Now I could just set my color to be whatever I want, but then when I go later into printing out a header, because this is basically a header row, to print out each row header, I would need to remember to change the same color. So good programmers like to abstract a little bit of this stuff. And so we're going to create a function called setHeader, and all it's going to do is just do the header colors. So it doesn't actually take any arguments here. Go ahead and write that function before we get lost. And we'll do a void function that is a set header. And that is going to just set some standard background colors and foreground colors for a header row. And so we'll do a set background color of, let's do 7. So that's a white background. And we'll do a set text color of 0. And so that's going to be black. So our header colors are always going to be black text on a white background. So what we've done here is we basically have told it to go ahead and set the background color and the text color, and then print out a header row that is just a constant string. And then I want to, on a new line, I probably should want to print out a new line here. And if I try to print out a new line, I think it's going to break my background color. I think it'll just wrap up the background color to the full end of the screen. So I'm going to actually create a new function here called new line. And then that new line function up here, void new line, is going to just set the background color, set background color to the standard 0, which is black. And it's going to set the text color to 7, which is the standard white. So basically I'm just setting the standard colors here to be regular white text on a black background, and that allows me then to do an out text of a new line character. That's all I'm doing there. I'm just sort of making a little shortcut that whenever I call the new line function, it just sets my colors and then prints out a new line, so that way I don't end up with any kind of weird color artifacts on my screen. And so that's what I've done now down there. And now I want to change this putChar line. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Let's write a new one. So I actually want to print out some sort of a header for the row that I'm on. So that's going to be the hex code for the row. So what does the hex code for the row look like? Well, I want to put this into a temporary string. So we're going to do the sprintf function. That's going to basically be a printf, but instead of printing it to the user, it's going to just store it into a string. So the S in this case is a reminder that it's printing into a string. And we're going to have it print into the string stir, which is a very short string. That's okay, because all we're going to store in it is the %X. And so that's going to give me a hex value of a number. And it's going to use, because I'm using the uppercase X, it's going to use uppercase letters. So uppercase A, uppercase B. And so that's what I'm going to print there. And then what am I going to print out? I'm going to print out the row value. So I realize this is in the wrong spot, so let's go ahead. I don't want to put this inside my my for loop that has the column, so we'll do a cut, and up here we'll do a paste. All right, so after I've printed that into a string, I can now set my header colors, and I can then do an out text of what that is. So we'll have an out text of stir. And so now that I printed that out, now I can print out the rest of my row. And that is what's going to go inside here. Now for each character, I then need to make another little string. And that is going to be a sprintf. And I'm going to put it into string. And then I would normally want to do a character, just a single character. But remember up above, at that out text at the start of the program, we actually have a space between each column. And so I'm going to put a space right in front of it. And then what's the value? That's well what we had before in our little demo program. It's just row plus the column. That's the actual character, because that's how we get it. We're adding the row and then the column, and that gives us the hex value for that extended character. And so as I print it out, I want to go ahead and set a different standard color. Before we called it set header, so in this case we'll just call it set row. That's our, and we'll tell it that's what row we're in, and then we're going to do an out text of that string. And actually, now that I look at it, I probably could be a little more optimized if I were to. Everything in that row is going to use that same color, so I can actually do a set row for whatever row I'm in. I can do that up there before I go into the for loop. And now I'm only calling it once. And I don't have that function yet. That's a new function I'm going to write, and I'll put it right up here before my main function. And we'll do a void function called set row, and it's going to depend on whatever row I'm in. So that's going to be, in this case, an integer value called row. Now, I want to have different colors on these different rows to kind of represent different things. Sort of a quick reference for, am I looking at the standard printable characters? Am I looking at international text characters, box drawing, or math? And so I'm going to do some dependencies here on that. I'm going to say if the row is less than 0x20, so that means it's below the standard printable range. They actually don't need to have this, but because I might one day want to, I'm going to just make a note here. This is the non-printable area. And we'll set that background color, set BK color. We'll set that to remind us that this is non-printable. And so I'll set this to red. Red should be 4, because if you remember red, green, blue as being a binary value, and we're trying to set that to the value of just red, so that's 1, 0, 0. And if you remember, over here is the 1s column, the 2s column, and the 4s column. So I want to do a set value of 4. That's the decimal value for that. And so that would be red. And beyond that, so else, all right, so what's the next range? Well, the next range would be the standard printable characters. And so that goes up to, as long as the row is less than, well, it's got to be row 7, because all of the printable characters go up to 0x7e. The row actually I'm looking for is 0x70, but you know, we can do 7e, that's fine. Then it's going to be standard printable characters, and we'll set that background to blue. So remember what blue is. So if RGB is a binary value, we want to set that to not have any red, not have any green, and only have a blue. And so that is a decimal value of 1. So that's a blue background. I always like to indicate what that is in the comments. So that's blue. Otherwise, what's my next one? So as long as the row is less than 0xAF, because it's really A0, but that's fine. We can do it AF. That will be the international characters. And we're going to set that background color to be what would be a good color for those? Well, let's just go up increments here. This will be 2. So what is 2? Remember, red, green, blue. That's going to be green. And then another one here. We'll do another else if that row is less than the next one will be up to DF, because what was DF? That was the box drawing. So 0xDF. That's the box and block drawing. And we'll set that to its own obvious background color. Set BK color to, we'll just walk it up here. So this will be the next one. Will be 3, and if you remember what that one is, that is if that's RGB, that is a value of 0, 1, 1. And so we're only using green and blue, and so that is cyan or aqua. And then after DF, really would be anything. That's anything else. And so that's really up to 0xFE, and we're going to set that background color. I'm already using 4, so I guess I'll make the next one 5, and that will be, if you remember what that is, RGB values, right? The RGB values, and that is a binary value of 4 plus 1, so 1, 0, 1, and that will be magenta. And now that we're done with that if block, let's go ahead and just set a default text color. So we'll set text color, and we'll set it to a bright white, which will be a 15. Bright white. And then go ahead and return out of the function. And so that is now down here. When I say set row, based on the row that we're in, it's going to set a specific background color, and then always set the text color to be bright white. And then it's going to print out the values of my row. And it's going to do that by writing into a temporary string. And then it's going to print out that value back to the screen. And then when we're done with that, we need to do another new line, so we can do our next row. And remember, we got a function for that already called new line. And then after new line, that's our new line right here, so I should probably get rid of that. Then that's the end of our loop, and then we do return 0, and that's the end of our program. So if I've done everything correctly, which I think I have, we'll give it a run here, and we'll see what it looks like. That should be an ASCII reference table for all the DOS extended characters. So I'll go ahead and do File, Save, and Quit. And we'll rerun the compiler for the Watcom C Compiler and linker on ASCII.C. And I don't see any errors. Well, it says no new line at the end of the file. That's fine. But and then we can go ahead and run the ASCII program. And there you go. You can see that we've got a very handy reference guide for how to use the different extended characters in DOS. So, for example, the full block character is in the cyan range. So we can very easily see what each one of these are. And that is on row D0. and column B. So the hex value for that full block is going to be hex DF. I'm sorry, hex DB. What am I saying? Hex DB. If I wanted a vertical line for drawing a box, that's going to be in row B0 and column 3. And so that is a hex value of hex B3. Just like one more example, if I wanted to do the alpha character under the Greek numbers, that is under row E0 and column 0. And so the hex value for that is hex E0. So it's a very easy way to just sort of bring up my ASCII reference and remind myself what these different printable ASCII characters are. So thank you very much for the video. If you have anything else you'd like me to cover, and especially in programming, let me know in the comments below. Before I go, I want to thank everyone who supports me on Patreon. You really do make this channel happen. I thank you very much for that. Some of you are supporting me at a higher level, so thank you very much for that as well. Visit our website at freedos.org. Join us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and consider supporting me on Patreon. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.